It's gonna get real ugly.
Listening to episode 155 of PHP Ugly. I am your host, Tom Rideout. And here with me, as always, my two best buddies, Eric Van Johnson.
Oh, me? Oh, hey, hi, Thomas.
And John Congdon.
Hello. I realize I do that every episode.
You make fun of me for what I say every episode. That's fine.
Nope. Okay.
Thomas, I'm envious, man. I'm super envious. You're definitely one of those guys who, when you get a haircut, you trim up the beard, you probably shave off about 5 years from your age. You look like a child.
It works well. I'm pleased with it.
Yeah, you're looking good. If you're watching the stream, we have the cleaner shaven Rideout today. So,
well, how you guys been doing? We haven't talked in a couple weeks.
I know we took last week off, huh?
That's my fault. I apologize. Had to run back out to Arizona. You know how it is. Family emergencies, last minute stuff. So, but
Yep.
yeah, everything's good. Mom's doing better. But
Good.
yeah, sorry about you guys last week. But we're back. We got some exciting stuff going on.
It actually worked out better for me that we did miss because I was getting ready for my kid's 5th birthday party, so I had to do some paper mache.
5 years old.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe.
I had to make a pinata.
This is when it hits hyperdrive, man. I'm telling you. They hit 5, and then next thing you know, you're at the elementary school graduation, middle school graduation, high school graduation. It's like boom, boom, boom. It just comes right at you.
Slow down.
Nope. No, there's no more slowing down.
You don't need to speed this up. I know he had his preschool graduation certificate pass out the other day.
I still disagree with that.
It wasn't a graduation. It wasn't a walk thing. It was just, hey, here's a certificate.
It was fine. John showed up in his bathrobe, just like, am I supposed to be here?
Now, just so you know that if you
It's
get
pretty
into
bad.
the band, if you get into the band programs for elementary school, they're about 4 hours long. The concerts you have to go to because
The recitals. Yeah.
everyone gets the solo. Everyone gets introduced with a story about them. That's one of the nicest things about high school right now is that the band program, it's about 30 minutes. It's a tight 35 maybe, and they don't try to sell you anything. You don't get to meet every single kid in the band. They just play 4 songs and then they wave goodbye. Now that's a shame on its own because now they're actually really good. Listening to the high school band is enjoyable.
So note to self, don't put kids in music class. Got it.
Right.
I can read between the lines.
That's my takeaway.
Wait, I thought I was taking away. You were giving the information.
Well, that's
Man,
the
you just
takeaway
took-
I was intending.
Okay. Be careful. I'm very easily confused right now.
So how's everybody's coding world?
Busy.
Mine's been horrible for 2 weeks.
Busy,
Really?
horrible, exciting. I have exciting. So let's start with horrible. Yeah,
Well, Mine's not really coding per se. It's getting this project out of jQuery hell.
you're still working on that.
Still working on it. I don't know how much I've talked about it on here, but every page seems to have a different version of jQuery, all the way down to 1.3 on some pages, 1.7 on others, 1.10, 1.11 on some. And it's ridiculous trying to clean it. One, get all that cleaned up, get all the deprecated stuff fixed, and trying to get up to version 3.4. So we're making that minor jump to 1.12, getting that as clean as we can, and then jumping to 3.4 with a migration plugin that polyfills in there so it continues to work.
Ugh.
So I'm not familiar with the jQuery migration path. What's so special about 1.12?
you cut out there, but I assuming what you asked was 112 versus 3.4.
I said I'm not really familiar with the jQuery upgrade path. What makes 112 a special number that allows you to jump to 3.4?
112 was the last 1.x branch. There wasn't much in 2. I don't even know what the version 2 was. Then they jumped to version 3, and 3.4 is just available. That's what they're up to now. That where there aren't any known vulnerabilities.
Gotcha.
The entire 1.x branch has CSRF vulnerabilities, I believe.
Yeah, I keep getting warnings about that from GitHub on my like little sample project.
Yeah. So outside of having to change, they removed, kind of like Laravel did, they removed all helpers. So there were shortcuts. Instead of having to say dot on click, you used to be able to just say dot click. So fixing all of those, fixing the hovers and all the other shorthand ways of calling these functions or events, fix that up, and then all the dependency hell that you get into, because you're relying on dependencies that are 3, 4, 5 years old that have been abandoned.
Perfectly normal.
It's just not been fun, I can tell you that. And we have a deadline of next week.
Self-imposed deadline, or is there an actual reason for the deadline?
Actual reason this is all being done because Salesforce has strict security requirements, and they ran a spider or a bot to see what versions of stuff you're using, and then they compared against known vulnerabilities and said, hey, you're potentially vulnerable to this, and whether we are or not, I don't know.
Right.
So you got to get all that cleaned up.
Why are you laughing, Thomas?
Potentially vulnerable. I just love explaining to somebody that you don't use the thing that's broken isn't going to dissuade anybody.
Right. We know you're using this library. There's a potential that you're vulnerable, so fix it.
Yeah, that was an issue I ran into today, actually, where I saw a place in the code that if someone else wasn't paying attention, then they could implement the library wrong. And I said, well, I can just update it to have a mutator on it, so it's not an issue. And I was told, no, you're the only one implementing it, so as long as you do it implement it correct on the other side, then fine. Like, okay, I guess.
All right, well, Thomas,
fix it when you can just hopefully not break it.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to repair the broken slots on a bridge if you jump over them.
that's one way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
So you said you had a busy week, Thomas.
That gets into it. Our busy week is we're implementing a big new system, and we probably have 1,000 tickets on the Trello board for this thing, and it's just been nonstop. Text changes, functionality changes in the middle of the testing, and massive amount of work to put out. Lots of business logic that's changing on the fly. So, Monday I'll implement something, and Tuesday I'll be told to remove it, and Wednesday I'll put something else in place. So it's a very fast-paced development cycle on this project.
You like that?
I love it. I always have something to do. I always have a ticket to move. I'm not sitting there reading and researching stuff. I'm writing code, lots and lots of code.
Cool.
The only issue is that we do have one seeder that is feeding the entire thing, and it's 8,479 lines long.
Holy smokes. Dude.
So when we decided that we needed to change one of our columns, JSON values, I couldn't really just go one at a time changing that. I had to write up a regular expression to do a replace in the editor. And that's happened a couple times.
I love regular expressions.
I do not.
Why not?
I mean, I love that they exist, but they're not the friendliest thing to work with.
I think they are once you understand them.
Yeah. It means
Yeah.
you haven't been using Vim enough. That's all it means.
Am I lagging for you guys? I feel like my video, specifically me, I'm lagging a lot.
No.
No? All right. I feel like I'm lagging, but if you say I'm not.
Yeah, you're lagging.
Ah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm lagging.
That's
That
just
does
life
not-
getting to you. How's your week been? Or
Mine's been
two weeks?
fantastic. My week. I've been accomplishing things. I've been trying new things. Been going real well. I have my first real world implementation of a serverless application out there that I'm running side by side to its sister app, which is the exact same application written on the exact same framework using Laravel. Of course, the serverless one has a few tweaks to it to allow it to run on serverless. And the serverless one also doesn't use a MySQL database. I have it using DynaDB. But besides that, they're the exact same application. And I got to tell you, I'm super excited about this. Just that situation right there, without even working through whatever I can do to optimize performance, just kind of that first pass of coding to get these endpoints out there so that our mobile team can start developing their application to talk to it. The serverless application runs a tad faster than the EC2 instance. When you hit the serverless API endpoint in its code, it runs about a second longer than the EC2 instance, but after that, it runs a clean 2 to 2 seconds faster than the EC2 instance.
That's pretty
And
cool.
I'm very happy with it. So where I thought my next step was going to be to go down another language path that was designed to run on serverless, and I started a small project in Go, but then I'm like, you know what? Let me give this one more pass and just plain PHP, where I'm trying to optimize the calls. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, and hopefully I'll have that done in the next day or two, and just to see how much better I can get that over the framework itself. But even with the framework, I'm not disappointed. I mean, ideally, end of day, if I had to, I could easily deploy the serverless version, and it's still better than the EC2 version. It's still better than what we were planning on going with.
So the rewriting it in vanilla PHP is really just a test.
To see how much quicker I can get it to go, yeah. And it's funny because it's been so long since I've started a project that wasn't either a package for an existing framework or something. This is the first time I've just started a project from scratch that wasn't a framework or a package to a framework. And it's just like the simple things. I'm like, oh, I'm having to pull in a package to talk to the DynaDB. And in Laravel, this was pretty simple because the package for DynaDB tied into the Laravel Eloquent system and models. So once I put in the package and I gave it the credentials, then it was just a regular Laravel model at that point. I just spun up a model. I was able to use eloquent calls to call my records. Now I had to pull in a package. It's like, wait a minute, I gotta type in all this stuff so it makes the connection to the database. Come on, man. You know. So I'm having to embrace that process again. But it's funny how much I always talk about. Well, I always blame PHP Storm for, I feel like I become a weaker developer the longer I use PHP Storm. And really the same thing is true with frameworks. The more I use frameworks, the weaker of a PHP developer I feel like I am. And I felt that today as I was starting from scratch. I'm like, and it wasn't even like a weak thing. It was just like how frustrated I was getting that I have to, type out a full connection string to connect to DynamoDB. It's like, come on. PHP should just have this built in by now. Come on. But
that came up interestingly on internals, where someone was saying, "Oh, their connection string was getting leaked by my MySQL error," and the internals group was basically like, "Yeah, this is a programming language, not a framework. You're supposed to handle this shit on your own.
Right?
Like, this isn't WordPress, buddy. Go away."
Exactly, and that's stuff you got to think of. That's another perfect example. Yeah, you got to catch it, because if you don't catch it and you don't handle it, it's just going to puke out everything and tell the world, your secret.
Yeah. It was an interesting discussion on the internals threads, because a lot of people were saying, well, a blank page isn't the right way to handle user errors either. And then people with actual experience and weight to the conversation came in and said, this is a programming language still. Stop complaining about it doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Like,
so that has me writing a little bit of a coding high this week. And then John and I, we did the PHP podcast today as well. We recorded that. And that was really good. So I know I've been pimping PHP Architect lately, and I'm really going to have to pimp it one more time to you guys, because this latest episode of PHP podcast you want to listen to for sure. But no, the latest edition of PHP Architect was just it's such a chock full, great edition of things that it was probably one of the more exciting PHP podcasts we had to do, because there was just so much to talk about. Good.
Article after article. I mean, they were all good this month.
Yeah. Rob Allen, he continued his serverless series where he actually writes an application. Unfortunately, I was a little ahead of him. So Rob, he inspired me when we interviewed him last month for PHP Architect, and he inspired me to jump back into serverless, because, as we discussed today, I had done probably a dozen or so hello worlds in a wide variety of languages, but I still hadn't done anything substantial with serverless. And after talking to Rob, I'm like, you know what? This project I'm working on right now is a perfect example of what could be serverless. And so that started me down that path, and I was so excited. So it was nice to see Rob's follow-up article, because he actually touched on a couple things that A, I was struggling with, and B, that were just good ideas. Like, he introduced a makefile into his, which I was explaining on the show today. It's like, I have a couple of friends, and TJ Miller is a big proponent of the makefile. And when I was doing a lot of Docker stuff, and TJ was helping me out, he was like, "Oh yeah, man, just make a makefile." And I'm like, "Damn, I had forgotten about makefiles and like how useful they are to have around." And so he's like, "Yeah, I make makefiles for everything." And he gave me examples. So turns out Rob does the same thing for his serverless projects, because of the way you deploy and clean and all this other stuff. He's made a makefile that does it all. That was good. But yeah, it's great. They have another article in there it's another one of these articles where I'm like, God, I think I'm good at my job, but I'm freaking fucking terrible at what I do. It was about array mapping, array reduce, array map, array walk, and basically not using for each, and instead using array map, array reduce, array walk.
Right.
And I'm like, I read that article and I've seen those functions so many times. I'm like, why am I not using this? This is such a nicer way of coding. And here I am like a chump doing for each loops every couple of functions.
So I get into that every once in a while, but I've keep finding that for each is so predictable. I know exactly the way it's going to behave. And the array stuff can be really inconsistent in how it assigns or overrides or handles associative. Like array map will modify the existing array that you pass in, but array walk will return. Or maybe I have that backwards.
Other way around, yeah.
Right, that's my problem.
As long as you pass by reference on array walk.
I see. I don't want to deal with that. For me, for each is just like it's readable. You say it's doing this. It's taking this and doing it.
Yeah. The points that were made in the article, I think, were around readability and less chance of introducing errors. And then actually on the show, the PHP podcast show, we were talking to Oscar about it. He brought up another great point of because you're dealing with enclosures, there's less chance of changing a variable elsewhere in your scope.
Mm-hmm.
Where often in a for each, you might, I just want to alter this right here and then forget it's going to be used later on or anything.
Yeah, which I've done plenty of times.
Mm-hmm.
But the habit I have of not using else help prevent that. When you assign a default value to a variable and then you do an if and override the default value for the variable.
Yes, but these are for each. So
yeah, you're in a for each loop, not an if then or if else.
Well, no, in my for each loops, if I have logic where a variable changes, I will use default values for everything and then change the value based off of ifs.
Mm.
So my default value always gets queued up first.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying.
But that's a habit of mine that helps. It's not necessarily something that people should rely on.
Right. And you're only talking about default values. This is more about you could be changing something in your array by mistake. You could be changing just some other random value by mistake without realizing what's going to happen after or your for each loop. So again, I see lots of people using those functions a lot, and I often was the same way. Like for each is just easier. I know it. That's just how I'm going to do it. And I explained on the show today that I've actually seen people try to change for each loops within the application I mainly work on to use some of these functions and screw it up because they didn't understand the logic. So it made me more resistant to actually switching or taking advantage of it.
So then we have all this exciting stuff going on, and Laravel UK was also happening this week, and Freck was live streaming it on his one of the social media accounts. I forget which one it is that lets you live stream, but I was watching it, and somebody in Discord said, "Hey, Taylor just said Simver's coming to Laravel." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, like 95%. I'm like, "Wait, what does that 95%?" He's the owner of Laravel. Either it is or isn't coming. What do you mean 95%?
When he finally waits for a community consensus, it's on the wrong thing.
So I went back and I watched the video, and yeah, sure enough, he said that probably starting with Laravel 6, he will go with Semver versioning. And it's funny, but I understand the concern. First off, across the board, ecstatic about this, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm really
couldn't be
happy,
happier.
right? This is fantastic. He's worried that, because if I understood what he was trying to convey, he's not planning on slowing down his development practice and development cycle. So essentially what he's going to do is whenever he has a backwards breaking change, he's going to up the version. And, he expressed some concerns about, well, now Laravel is going to go from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, just like boom, 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 boom.
Great.
Exactly. That's like, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen when you put backwards breaking changes in. That's what you do. That's perfect. So,
I mean, I remember using Paint Pro when it was version 25 or something in the 90s. That's fine.
Well, I mean, look at your Chrome. Look at your Firefox now. I mean, Firefox is, up to like version 58. I mean, they crank out major releases every week now. That's the way it is because people understand that versioning practice, and people can build up workflows and development practices against them. So
Photoshop is 20 right now.
Right.
That's fine.
So yes, everybody, and I think it's going to be a hard thing for some Laravel developers to wrap their head around because they're not used to it. It's going to be a scary thing. I'm like, there's part of me that was like, you should have been more scared before. Like, this isn't scary. You should have been terrified before.
Yeah, when it jumps from 5 to 30, that's when you should realize that it's a scary thing. Mm-hmm. When you're stuck 10 versions behind master, then be scared. But that's also an indicator of you should be scared. You're 10 versions behind.
So super excited. Somebody mentioned it today. I guess Laravel US is in a month, which it would be right.
Yeah.
It would be early June. So really excited about going to that now and talking to some people. But man, I couldn't be happier to hear that news.
I just dislike he kept talking about the reason he didn't do Semver was for branding purposes, and it's just like it was blowing my mind. Like, how does branding play into this?
Yeah, and the ironic thing about it is, I think he was actually putting more weight into the number than like developers were. Like, he saw the progression of Laravel, and okay, this was where we were at 4. Here's where we're at 5. Here's where we're at 6. And I think that's what he's seeing, and that this idea of going, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9.2, 9.3, 10, 10.1, 11, 11.1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but then the numbers mean nothing.
Right. Well, I mean, they mean a lot to us as developers, but to John's point, from a marketing perspective, it doesn't really impact your marketing. It's just, I
think he also mentioned something about adding new features, and to me, you don't have to bump your major version number if you're adding new features.
No.
Right.
It's only BC breaks.
I mean, I think some companies, PHP Storm probably being one of them, that do that because they want you to pay to upgrade to the next version, and the only way they're going to do that is if there's something new for you to buy.
I see.
So
my understanding of it with Semver is, basically this is how I break it down. The first number is backwards breaking changes that are introduced or major revisions to the platform. The second number is, new features are added, but shouldn't be anything that breaks any existing code. And the third one is, this is just a bug fix, no breaking changes, just fixing basically housekeeping of the software.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that is how the semantic versioning 2.0 doc defines it.
Okay,
It
perfect.
gets further into detail with major, minor, patch, and then like hot fix and all those things, and how you handle backwards breaking patches. There's all sorts. I mean, it's a 4-page doc.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's basically the rule to it, is that backwards compatible changes, new functionality that is forward backward compatible, and then patches that are not new functionality but repair something fundamentally.
So in Discord, I mean, Frank pretty much echoes exactly what I think Taylor is concerned about. He's like, it sounds so much better to say, yeah, I'm on Laravel 5 or the Laravel 5 version than to say, oh yeah, I'm on Laravel 33, 12, 15. You know, and I get that, but really, how often do you have that conversation? You're on Laravel. You're either on the current version of Laravel or you're on an older version of Laravel. You know,
Well, but I've seen companies go even further than that and add a second major version number. So if he wanted to maintain this kind of marketing thing, he could call this Laravel 1, and then the next time he wanted to do a marketing change, he could call it Laravel 2. And Laravel 2 would be basically the first LTS version of 38.0.0.
mm,
I've Well, the Symphony 2 was the same way, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Doesn't Symphony still go by Symphony 1, Symphony 2, and Symphony 3?
Yeah.
But that's not their actual version number. That's
I got
the
you. So they have another major version number in their versioning.
yeah, they have like a product number for it.
Discord updating. We have all this conversation happening in Discord, and our little Discord thing in the stream doesn't update anymore. Pissing me off.
You broke it.
I did. I have to remake that.
I guess Symphony does still follow basic Semver.
It does. So,
But I know that when they went from Symphony 3 to Symphony 4, they forked the 3 branch and continued maintaining it alongside Symphony 4.
But that makes sense. So again, not to go down this whole rabbit hole again, but Symphony is an enterprise implementation of a PHP.
What?
So that makes perfect sense. They have enterprise customers, they have SLAs, they have contractual obligations. So yeah, they fork it. That development branch doesn't stop. I mean, they continue to backport patches to it. They continue to work on it. So that makes perfect sense. And that's completely a reasonable approach. So again, that's what I was stating as far as Taylor wasn't changing his development cycle. Somebody like Symphony, as they see new features, as they identify new things they want to implement, they say, okay, this is our next, this gets added to our next major version of Symphony. So when Symphony 5 comes out, we're going to have this laundry list of new features that, that are not new features, but big changes, backwards breaking changes and things like that. So they hold on to those and they let them, they let them stack up and they release them all as one major release. But from what I was hearing with Taylor, he's not planning on doing that, which is, again, it's fine. I'd rather him do that and adhere to Semver than do what he's currently doing.
Eric, you need to talk faster. Faster, go.
What do you mean?
Can you talk? Can you talk at 1.4 speed? Come on, let's go.
Moving on.
Keep it moving. Eric wants to start.
I was telling you guys about my journey into Windows.
Yes. How's your journey into Windows? I'm catching up in Discord. I'm sorry. I see what everybody's talking about. Eric, I'm very sorry. I'll talk fast. It's not only that we're on the podcast, but we're California. In Californians, we tend to slow it down a little bit, man. There's a lot of things to appreciate in the world, dude. You
Also,
good,
very easily distracted.
good friends, man. I'm not looking to get rid of them or anything, man. But I understand. I appreciate it. You're probably a New Yorker or something, or somewhere like that. You just want to get the information and move on. I understand that.
Windows.
How's
Go.
Windows going, Tom?
I am completely. I got so lost, so confused, so deep into it. I was just down a total rabbit hole.
What were you trying to do? It's a freaking desktop, man. What were you doing?
I was trying to get Vagrant working in the Ubuntu WSL instance.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because we have a developer who had all sorts of problems between Vagrant and Docker on his Windows machine.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm curious.
It is a misconception issue. It is 100%. That is not what this is for.
What? So explain. What is what not for?
This is not to run Linux applications on a Windows machine. This is to manage your Windows machine with an Ubuntu shell. So when I pop open my shell, my Ubuntu WSL shell, and I type Skype, Skype launches.
Right.
It's the Windows Skype.
Okay.
When I type Vagrant, Vagrant launches. It's the Windows binaries of Vagrant.
Okay.
When I'm running VirtualBox and I say Vagrant talk to VirtualBox, it's using the Windows binaries. I'm commanding them from an Ubuntu shell. Now,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is that the only option you have? Is there not a way to?
No, that's not the only option. You can get Vagrant and Docker native Ubuntu deb packages working, but the whole argument is that's not what this is for. You're not supposed to go through that gigantic hassle. This is just a terminal that gives you access to rough Linux applications like sed and awk and ls. It lets you run the MySQL client or maybe the server. But when you start getting into stuff like virtualization or interaction between multiple components, you should be running the Windows native binaries. You shouldn't be running the Ubuntu binaries inside of the WSL container. Those are high-level applications that require interactions with the kernel that just really don't work correctly at this point. And what I've seen it compared to is it's like running Wine on a Linux system, where yes, you can run Windows applications, but you're not running Windows. You're running a Windows emulation, or not emulation, but a Windows logical layer. It isn't Windows, and stuff's not always going to work. But it has the interoperability with the Linux system where you can send information back and forth between the two things. So it isn't exactly the dream that I was thinking of, but that's because I'm not running Ubuntu as a VM. Now, if I wanted to run my Ubuntu VM, I could go ahead and do that, but that's just not what WSL is. WSL is just a logical layer that breaks Ubuntu out of its normal cage. It breaks it out of Windows and puts it into what's called a Pico service sandbox, or a Pico process. And these Pico processes don't have to interact with the userland operating system. They can interact directly with the kernel. And this whole idea of subsystems actually started in the Windows NT era with OS2 Warp and POSIX.
Mm.
And that's kind of what we're back to, where it's a non-Windows native application that can run through the Windows kernel. So I went through this whole rabbit hole where I was like, how do I get this working? How do I get this working? It's partially working. It's barely working. It's doing a little bit of thing correctly. It's not doing it correctly. Until I ran across somebody just saying, I understand everyone wants to get Vagrant working in WSL, but that's not the point of it. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing Vagrant up from in WSL, but that should be launching the Windows services. It should not be launching Ubuntu binaries.
So how do you feel about it? Do you think maybe this is less useful to you now, or?
It isn't less useful. It's just an interesting turn of events.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different. It's apples to oranges for me. It is not what I had initially envisioned it as being, which is my fault, and possibly the fault of the Microsoft marketing team for not really laying out what this is for. There are a lot of documents on what WSL is, and none of them are really clear until you start really digging down on the technicals of how it works. But it's for assisting development inside Windows, not for turning your Windows machine into a Windows plus Linux machine. So I've had to roll back a lot of the stuff I did. I spent a couple hours trying to get Vagrant, and then all the other stuff working, and filling up my hard drive with disk images that failed to boot, stuff like that. But the reality is,
are you sticking it out though? Are you still on the Windows platform?
I don't even notice that it's Windows, except for the taskbar placement. I've been really pleased with the stability, the performance. I mean, my initial problem was the fan turning on and going full blast when I was doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the computer started to just lose performance. And so that's why I got a copy of Windows, was to hopefully fix the laptop's fundamental problems. And it did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very pleased with that.
Okay, so once you got your head conceptually around the way that this is used, you're fine with it at that point.
Yeah, I'm very happy with having a Windows machine. The only thing is that Synergy doesn't want to play nice with the forward and back mouse buttons, the number 4 and number 5. But I can live with that.
That means you have too many buttons on your mouse.
I have a gesture.
Always supposed to be left and right.
I have a gesture pad on my mouse.
So do I.
Tom has a never-ending battle with Synergy. He can't not use it, but he's not going to like it.
I know.
Cool. So, I don't know, John, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I do think we should talk about Dependabot. And this is not a male diaper service. This is an important stuff. Huh?
Oh. Although, that's a good idea. It could be. What do you mean steal my thunder? Not my thunder.
Well, you mentioned you want to talk about it.
Oh, no, I saw it the other day, and I think because you added it to some of our repos, and I started looking into it. So Dependabot, a service available free on GitHub, right? And
GitHub purchased it. It used to be a paid service, and then GitHub purchased it and made it free for anybody on GitHub.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah,
I knew it was free because that's when I saw it, but I didn't know it used to be a paid service.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything come of it on the one application I've added it to. I don't know if I've got it misconfigured or anything. I've seen pull requests come through on some of our other projects.
Okay, what is it?
So it is a service that watches your repo, I guess checks it on a regular basis, looking at your composer. And does it do any other? Does it look at NPM as well?
Yeah, it does both.
So it's looking at your dependencies, dependa. So looking at your dependencies, looking for security vulnerabilities or upgrades. And I think there are multiple options. It will automatically.
This is the jQuery email I get every day.
Right. Well, it depends because
Uh,
GitHub was doing this by itself. It would alert you of vulnerabilities you had in dependency packages. Dependabot takes it a step further. It will not only alert you, but it will automatically open up pull requests. So if it's able to resolve your dependency issue, it will resolve it and open up a pull request for you in your repo without you having to take any other action but merge it.
well, that's handy.
Yeah, that's the crutch of it. And they support Ruby, JavaScript, Python, PHP, Elixir, Rust, Java, .NET, Go. I mean, just about the whole gamut of things that you would have on GitHub. They have support for. So it'll be in our show notes, but it's dependabot.com. If you have GitHub, you've probably been prompted to look at it already. Anyways, I think I need to turn it down. I mean, I just immediately opened it up on all of our repos, and now we have a steady flow of PRs out there that we need to look at. I merged a couple, but yeah, it's nice little tool to have. Sorry, John.
What does it when it opens a PR? The next time it checks, does it know a PR has been open and not open the same one?
That's a great question. That's the behavior I've
Probably
seen.
hashes it.
Yeah, so it has not opened. I have existing PRs out there from it, and it has not opened up another PR. And it not only has it not opened it, I think it even sends the email it sends says, "Hey, just a reminder, this PR is out there." It doesn't send the whole, "Hey, we found a vulnerability. We found a vulnerability." It is a little bit more, "Hey, just a reminder, you have this PR open for this issue."
I'm still shocked that I had it added. Maybe it just doesn't have access to the repo, because I still haven't gotten any emails or pull requests open by it.
So I noticed.
I'm gonna have to go look at it.
So I'm looking at it now, and I notice. See, I don't know if there's a configuration. Oh yeah, there is a configuration. I think this might be new. So the first time this worked for me, it was all magic. It just happened. I noticed this today that I had a vulnerability on one of the repos, and I just clicked into it, and it's given me the option to open up the PR, which is what I expected to do. But I'm wondering why it didn't do it. And then I see now there's actually a drop down that says automated security fixes are on or off. So it looks like either GitHub just recently added this in the last week, or I don't know if I had this configured differently on a different repo. But you do have to actually enable the automatic fixing of your repo. But it should still be giving you a big. If you go to the repo, it should be giving you a big splash on the front of the repo saying, "Hey, we found vulnerability issues here."
I will check it out.
Mm-hmm. So cool, man.
I've got one more thing that I think we need to talk about.
Lay it out there.
WWDC.
Hold on. Before we go down WWDC, I need to give a thanks to our patrons, because we have new patrons and I have not been adding them to the list. And so I added them to the list. And I think it's important to say thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much to all our Patreons.
Our list is getting bigger. And I keep saying I'm going to take that money and we're going to get a standardized opening and closing for our podcast. I just have been a little busy and haven't had a chance to go on Fiverr and find somebody with actual talent to do it. So I'll try to get to that.
Well, it's Fiverr.
I always get. We always do our intros on Fiverr, man. We did that on the PHP podcast, which was pretty good. And I used Fiverr somewhere else. I forget where else I used it, but I don't know. Not bad. I mean, it's never $5. It always ends up being like $100 and something if you want good people.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So it's
you still pay.
hundreder.
You still pay for the talent you want, but you can find a couple of $5 people on there.
Is that really where the name came from? I had no clue.
Yeah, yeah. You used to be able to ask anyone to do stuff for a $5 bill, and people would auction themselves to do it.
For $5.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's a little more pricier now, but well worth it. Well cheaper than going to Craigslist.
Much cheaper than a new Apple monitor, or even a new Apple monitor stand, or even a new Apple VESA mount.
Yeah, that was a little crazy, right?
So I want to get into the monitor first. The reality is that this new $6,000 monitor that they have is competing at
damn.
Yeah.
But
it's competing with.
Isn't it like 8K or something?
No, the issue here is the native MIP, which is the per pixel brightness, and the color depth and color accuracy. So the closest competitor in this market is, I believe, currently $40,000. So when Apple says this is a $6,000 monitor, they're saying that the only thing better than the $6,000 monitor is a $40,000 monitor. This is targeted at professional photo editing studios, professional visual effects and film editing.
Yeah, but end of day, people were not happy about the fact that the stand was being sold separately. Like,
so that's the thing, is that
what
now
the hell?
what happened is they targeted the wrong market. When you're looking at buying a red 4K camera or 8K camera, it starts at $20,000, and that doesn't include any way to power it on.
Yeah.
Because that's the way this market works. When you're looking at professional video and photo stuff, every single component of it costs another $1,000 on top of the base product. They've also produced some kind of new magnetic mounting system that's not VESA. It can detect when the monitor's being rotated automatically, and it does all sorts of cool magical stuff that would be really handy in a video editing suite. But they showed it off to a bunch of developers and didn't explain that very well.
No. I disagree with you, because they showed it right after they showed the new Mac Pro, which, oh my God, that's expensive. Like,
It's also, well, now the Mac Pro is on the other end of the spectrum, where it's ridiculously expensive and stupid. Whereas the monitor is ridiculously expensive and cool and worth it. The Mac Pro is.
It's worth it, not for your everyday user.
Nope, not in the slightest.
why
It
do you
is
say?
a $6,000 base unit, and the base unit comes with a 256 gig SSD, a completely underwhelming video card, and a last gen CPU. It is easily replaced by $800 on the PC market, and they want $6,000.
Wow. So my point being, when they were introducing that, they were very clearly targeting the video production, photo production market, and that led them into the monitor.
Right.
So
This
it's
is
not
their
like they
big
said.
mistake. Their big mistake was having WWDC introduce their whole new line of hardware that's targeted at a completely new audience that they were only tangentially going after before. They used to be the home photographer, the home video maker solution. But then once you wanted to get real with shit, you had to go to Avid, and you had to go with these really high-end products that cost in the area of hundreds of $1,000s. Now they're trying to target this audience that they previously ignored, but they just did it at the same event they always do their normal crap at, and it's a huge backfire for them. And yeah, having a stand, announcing the price of the stand on the stage was stupid too, because what did they think they were saying to people? That this $1,000 monitor stand is a real steal?
Yeah.
Like, it's a steal, but not in the way you would normally use the word. They're stealing from you.
It was funny, if you're watching it live, the person who introduced it was visibly shaken by the booing going on in the audience. And I heard a rumor that Apple cut all the booing out and like told news agencies, "Hey, don't show the clip of people booing the stand, or we're not going to be nice to you anymore."
And that is true. I saw the original videos and the re-uploaded videos, and they clearly cut the mic.
The guy, and what was funny is like when you're watching it live, I feel bad for these Apple people, because they've drank the Kool-Aid. They live in a silo.
Really do,
like,
yeah.
He's explaining it like, yeah, the stand has all these awesome features, and we're only selling it for $1,000. And people go, boo! And he's like, wait, what? What? You guys, you don't like that? It's like it never dawned to you that people were not going to be happy. You didn't even have to demo that. Like, you didn't even have to put it up on the big screen. People could have found that out when they buy the monitor.
It had no place in the presentation whatsoever. It was just there because for some reason they thought that was a good thing to sell the points.
Exactly.
And it was not a good thing to sell. It's not a Rolex. Now, if you look at the hardware inside of the stand, it's technically impressive. It's not just a spring and a gear. It's got this whole weighting mechanism so that you can put a 20-pound monitor on it and bend it at any angle and it'll just stay there. It's very cool. But why'd you put the price on it? Why'd you show us?
Why the price at all? It's like, it's part of a monitor, right? I mean, people need
not in this industry though. In the industry, they often have their own stands already.
Right. In the industry that they're targeting wasn't the people in the crowd. And that's why they got booed. But the people they were targeting very quickly got on YouTube and said, "Well, you guys don't understand. That Apple conference just saved me $110,000. That's cool." But the people who were sitting there watching the presentation had no idea about this premium market for film studios that relies on $40,000 monitors. And monitors that also don't come with a mount.
MKBHD did a good talk about this, and where he said they should have announced it as a $7,000 monitor, and then without the stand, we'll knock 1,000 off. Versus, in addition to, or just like you said, just not stated at all on stage, because when people go to buy it, that's when you bring that up.
But this is such a good example of where Steve Jobs would just be rolling in his grave, because it's such a gigantic marketing blunder that all anyone was talking about was $1,000 monitor stand, and they weren't talking about the 1/4 price monitor for high-end studios. The technology that they've put out there is revolutionary, but everyone missed it because they marketed it so poorly. Mm-hmm. And that's the opposite of what Jobs was known for. And then do you remember any of the new features for iOS 13 that the most of the conference was about?
No, I actually didn't see that. I didn't see anything else come out of WWDC.
So there's some new Animoji stuff, some new AR stuff.
I do know that they're splitting they're recognizing now that the iPad is really becoming its own marketplace, and they're splitting. They're no longer trying to keep the iOS and the same operating system across the phone and the iPad. and
Yeah.
they're giving the iPad its own version of it, which I thought was good to see.
There was a number of features that have been native to Android for about 5 years, like quick sharing to frequently used contacts and stuff like that. I mean, stuff where, as an Android user, I was watching it and thinking, what were you guys doing before? I don't...
Yeah, that's real common, actually. that's real common. Well, that's like the whole. It's still to this day the whole Bluetooth thing. Yeah, they finally add Bluetooth to the phone, and it's like, oh yeah, or no, I'm sorry, NFC. They finally add NFC to the phone. They're like, oh yeah, but you can only use it for Apple Pay. I'm like,
Yeah, why?
but why?
Oh,
Like,
that was okay. So that was the big thing that came out, was sign in with Apple, and
yeah.
what a huge nothing that is.
But to people in the Apple world, that's a big deal. It's like, wait a minute, I can have a single sign-on.
They think it is. They think it is. But the reality is that it doesn't provide any additional security, and it doesn't provide any additional obfuscation. So the whole thing is that it creates a dynamically generated email address that points to Apple's email servers and then forwards it to you if you get spammed by it. That doesn't stop anything. You're still getting the email. You still have to say, this is spam. It doesn't help. It's... And they were really, really proud to announce that that now applications had to request permissions individually for your phone's systems. So they had to ask permission to access microphone and video, and I looked at my phone and I thought, I didn't realize that was missing.
I was like, yeah, we've been doing that for years. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Right? I'm on a modern OS.
Going back to the sign-on thing, I hadn't heard about that. So if it's working the way I think it is, I actually had an idea for this. I ran it by Eric a couple of years ago and just never did anything with it. But they're generating an email address that can be used for sign-on, right? They're probably not allowing any email to go to that email except from where it's used. So if you generate it for...
It's per application, actually. So
right,
you can't even... Like, you can go into your security configuration and block specific things that you had allowed. So, like, you would get a link at the bottom of any emails from this particular app that say, block this application's permissions. And if they had disseminated that email address to any other company, it would be blocked as well.
right.
But the reality is that solves one problem that's not really a problem. Apps aren't using your email address to identify you on your phone anyways. They're using your IMEI. And they're not sending you spam. They're tracking your behavior with cookies. They're solving a non-issue at this point. I mean, spam, as much as it's annoying, it's kind of a dead issue.
Yep. All right. Well, I feel like this has been a good episode. What do you guys think? Wrap it up? We wrapping it up?
Yep.
I don't know. Do I have any doom and gloom?
No.
Nope.
Wrap it up.
None of that.
Episode 155 is in the can. I am your wonderful host, Eric Johnson.
Did you just call yourself wonderful?
I am.
That's allowed on this podcast.
Nobody else does.
I call you wonderful all the time. What are you talking about?
Are you gonna sign
I'm
it?
John Conklin. I'm done. I'm out.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it up.
Keep it ugly.
My thing is way off. All right, cool.
I don't know why you think that you're lagging. You're not lagging at all.
He was
You
lagging.
don't-
pretty bad. You were lagging.
On my side, I'm lagging huge. Like I just put my hand up to the camera
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
I just saw it. You see that?
Yes.
See, I never even saw that one. It never even showed up on my camera. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
like pretty bad. All right, I'm stopping my local recording.
Yes, let me stop Zencaster for those interested. And then I will stop. Whoa. Oh. That's weird. All your tracks have been finished and uploading. But I never got John's. I have no track from you, John.
Why?
Why does this always break when we have Thomas on?
Hi.
Alright, let me see what happened. Let me go and see if it actually didn't give me a stream for John. Dropbox. App. Zencaster. And PHP Ugly 155. Wow, where's that at? Oh, it didn't even upload to my Dropbox. Oh shit, neither did the one from earlier, John.
What?
Wait a sec.
It says you're all done. All of your.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
It is.
It's coming in right now. Yeah, and that's why I'm breaking up, because it's syncing.
Probably as soon as you said you were lagging, we should have thought of that and said, "Hey, do you have Dropbox open?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so well, at least our other shows are on there. All right, here's 155. Yeah, yours is actually the first one that came in. Thomas and I aren't even in there yet. All right, so we'll assume I'll put all that in Dropbox.
It says Dropbox is syncing. One
Yeah.
sec.
This the video I shared in here is pretty fun.
That's just, they always have that guy. He did another one of his on another Apple product. I forget what it was, but yeah, the guy's cracking me up, man. With his laughing.
You have to share it to Discord.
Oh, that would have been a good idea. Here, I'll do that now. Oh, you did.
I just did it.
I know. So I said you just did.
So I assume I can delete these older shows.
Please do.
Free up some space for you.
You know you can do online only for those once you're finished.
I can
Right.
write.
Do you have that feature, Thomas?
No, I have the unpaid version.
Oh. You should pay for it.
You need to get your boss to pay for it, man.
We should use some of the Patreon money to pay for it. Since I only use it for Patreon. Or since I'll use it for the podcast.
We'll keep it clean for you.
Yeah,
Alright, that's all.
if you go to Apple's site, look up the stand.
Why?
Because they have a cutaway version of like the internal mechanism for it.
Oh yeah, I know it looks pretty cool.
But that's not what anybody saw.
No, of course not. Nobody saw that price tag.
I don't know why they put that stupid price tag on there. It was such a mistake.
I don't know. I'll have to come in tomorrow and see if I finish downloading Zencaster, because I'm not seeing your clip in Zencaster yet, Thomas. Even though the browser says that it's been uploaded.
Well, I'm leaving it
So-
open for whatever purpose, and I downloaded the.
No. I don't think you need to keep it open.
I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of Zencaster probably publishes it directly to Dropbox, and it just needs to sync down to my computer.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely lagging out right now, so give it some time.
Boy, if you
Sure.
look up Apple monitor stand on Google right now, the article titles are just vicious.
Oh, really?
Everything wrong with Apple today. Apple's arrogance on full display. There's no defending Apple's ridiculous monitor stand. Apple's monitor stand is a massive PR fail. That's page 1. Apple monitor stand is pointless. Apple
They'll
monitor
still
stand
sell
is
them
the most
$10.
Apple thing.
Man, that's still sell $1 million worth of them. Oh.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's just a marketing failure. They just fucked up the marketing, and it was nothing more than that. Because it's probably totally worth it in the sector that it's for. It's just not for the sector that was attending WWDC. Like they should have an Apple professional videographer conference where these people go to see how Apple is trying to take inroads on the video industry. It should have been something separate completely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric Poe and Jeff Poe and Frank and Frontal Nougaty. That's-
Where do you see him?
Yishu was on.
Yishu.
YouTube? Yeah, nice.
We had a great crowd today. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for coming in the Discord. We love having people in the Discord while we're doing this.
It makes
keeps
for an
things-
interesting audio episode.
It keeps Eric distracted, which is usually good for me and John.
All right, I think I'm killing the stream. Thanks,
Yep.
everybody.
We're
Thank
gonna
you.
get
Have a good
this
night.
Jake, we're